If you were active just about anywhere on the internet in the 2010s, you've probably encountered a creepypasta at some points. Whether you think of the Slenderman craze or being scared you were gonna get Lavender Town syndrome, creepypastas pretty undeniably took the internet by storm and allowed a lot of amateur horror writers a chance in the spotlights. In the process, it gave us some genuinely game-changing pieces of media at times. I'm thinking stuff like Ben Drowned, Candle Cove, Marble Hornets, the kind of things that have become like a classic among internet horror stories. But on the flip side, there's the unmistakable truth that for every one horror classic, there's hundreds of like really, really bad stories in its wake. That didn't inherently stop a lot of these stories from still getting popular though. Like, have you read the Jeff the Killer origin story recently? The one where he like gets lit on fire at a house party? It is comedically bad, yet me and hundreds of other little edgelords absolutely ate that shit up when we were 13. But back then, all it really took was a scary image or video with some sort of cryptic story attached to it to creep the ever-living shit out of vulnerable people online, and especially if it involved creating fake lost media. So while I'm a little late for the spooky season, I want to jump back to 2009 to revisit the history of one of creepypasta's earliest and most influential lost episode stories, Mouse.avi. Real quick, if you're like completely unaware of what Mouse.avi is, I would recommend you maybe read through the story real quick before watching this video. You don't have to, I am going to summarize it briefly, but this video is more about the early history and its impact on internet horror, not like a scary story reading. So if you want the most context, I'll have the story linked below. You can go read that. It's like a 6-minute read and then you can come back. So Mouse.avi, or as YouTube would hate for me to call it, Suicide Mouse.avi, claimed to be a lost Mickey Mouse short made by Walt Disney sometime in the 1930s. Pretty much, it's supposed to be a looped animation of Mickey walking through a city to unsettling piano music before it like devolves into various creepy horror situations like Mickey's face melting off and the music being replaced with blood-curdling screams. The story claimed that when this film resurfaced and was shown to a Disney executive, that he ran out immediately after finishing it and committed suicide, causing Disney to cover up its existence. The first version of this story was posted anonymously to 4chan's paranormal board on October 22nd, 2009, where it pretty quickly blew up. Not just because people were both praising and criticizing the story, which, don't get me wrong, they were, but because speculation on the validity of its existence had begun to run rampant, which, if you think about it, is the best publicity for just about any horror story. The story structure opened up the opportunity to take it at face value, to be able to believe and theorize that maybe this cursed lost media could really exist out there somewhere. This kind of ambiguity is one of the biggest driving factors to the popularity of things within the lost episode genre, and this was especially true in 2009 when this trope was very fresh. You didn't have 500 other stories about a cursed Looney Tunes cartoon or a Pokemon game that makes your eyes bleed. So getting online and seeing hundreds of people speculating about an apparent lost Mickey Mouse cartoon that seemed to make an employee kill himself is objectively kind of an attention-grabbing story, even if the content itself isn't really high literature. Within only a few hours of the story being posted, a local legend within the 4chan horror community, JojaQuap666, left a comment on the thread indicating that he was already working on his adaptation of the Mouse.avi tape. If you were big into creepypasta back in the day, you've actually probably already seen some of JojaQuap's work. He's known for making the notorious screaming video for Candle Cove, as well as accompanying videos for both Dead Bart and The Grifter. On October 27, 2009, only 5 days after the story's original inception, the full version of JojaQuap's Mouse.avi was posted to YouTube, but not by him. The poster, DwakaBT, credited JojaQuap in the description for creating the video and later stated in the comments that he got access to it when it was shown on one of JojaQuap's streams. Though this is a little weird, it seems to be backed up by a 4chan comment left days earlier, where an anon claimed to have emailed JojaQuap and received a reply stating, "It might pop up somewhere other than here if I get too spooked about copyright bullshit." The original upload would be taken down eventually for unknown reasons, but can still be accessed in a partially broken form on the Wayback Machine. Luckily, not too long later, on November 25th, a re-uploaded version of JojaQuap's Mouse.avi animation would be posted, this time to the channel Neck1, titled Suicide Mouse Unseen Freaky Footage. This upload included the original story pasted in the description, though the line said by the Disney employee before he takes his own life is changed from "I cannot see what has been unseen" to "real suffering is not known." This alteration would stick with pretty much every modern iteration of the story using the new quote as opposed to the old one. Neck1's upload of JoJoQuab's Mouse.avi animation is still up to this day with 1.4 million views at the time of filming this. Because this specific upload is the oldest one still up and one of the most viewed ones, it's often wrongfully cited as the origin of the creepypasta, as there's no actual crediting to the original 4chan story or to JoJoQuab666 for actually making the video. But the next and most popular version of JoJoQuab's Mouse.avi came only a few days later on October 8th. Posted by user Suicide Mouse.avi and simply titled Suicide Mouse, this version had some changes from the original, including being 2 minutes longer, adjusting the timing of events to be more story accurate, and entirely removing the original ending shots. This version was considered a way more faithful adaptation to the Mouse.avi film as it appears in the original story, as well as just blowing up with over 3 times the amount of views as any previous upload. The Suicide Mouse.avi channel wouldn't stop there though, as over the coming months they proceeded to post a deleted scene with some minor editing and musical changes, as well as a follow-up, if you can call it that. It's called Suicide Mouse Last Stand, and it's literally just a slow video of a nuclear bomb going off before transitioning to that deleted scene I just mentioned. It doesn't really add anything to the mythos, but I always thought it was really funny. Mouse.avi would regain a bit of steam again the following year when it was officially added to creepypasta.com and the Creepypasta Wikia in August of 2010. At this point, it had been pretty much solidified as a lost episode horror classic as its influence had begun to spread rapidly. Just 2 months after being added to the official Creepypasta website, another artist rendition of the Mouse.avi film was uploaded, this time by Stranger1945, entitled Suicide Mouse.avi HQ Remake. This version would be the first of many to reuse the same backing tracks from JoJoQuab's original one, but with entirely new animation. Honestly, this one is animated super clean, really giving the vibes of a 1930s Disney cartoon while also following the story's description of how the video should go almost perfectly. For some reason, this adaptation is one of the lesser viewed ones, which baffles me because not only is it like the second Mouse.avi ever made, but also it's just really well done and it's always been my personal favorite. Mouse.avi wouldn't be brought back to the mainstream again until late 2012, when a user on the Creepypasta wiki posted a now deleted article about a fan-made Mouse.avi game he found suspiciously linked in a YouTube comment. All we know is the game was made in Game Maker by someone named Alex C, who I cannot for the life of me find any record of in anything other than pages about this specific game. This game is very loosely based on the creepypasta, most of the horror being pop-up jump scares of unrelated spooky images like the classic Bleeding Eyes Squidward and Jeff the Killer. But in early 2013, Markiplier played it and offered us this very lovely perspective.
This is based off of some sort of creepypasta. I kind of glossed over it a little bit. It was really weird.
The last 2 Mouse.avi adaptations I want to talk about came scattered throughout 2013. The first, titled Suicide Mouse by Gorix, is arguably the most recognizable version of Mouse.avi, and not just because he watermarked it very well. I personally have seen this video shared a lot over the years, sometimes in shit completely unrelated to the actual creepypasta, like scary video compilations and shit on Instagram. And apparently that adds up pretty well because the Gorix Mouse.avi animation had garnered over 10 million views before being taken down by YouTube in 2020. Luckily though, like barely over a month ago, he re-uploaded it under the name Creepy Mouse Gorix on his personal channel. It only has like 6k views right now, so if that's something that you're interested in fully checking out, that along with all of the other fan animations that I talk about throughout this video are gonna be linked below. The final adaptation I want to talk about came at the very end of 2013 when creepypasta was really hitting its peak in internet virality. Suicide Mouse.avi original by Renzo Ramirez commits itself to the original story in a way no other adaptation previously had. Opening up with text claiming that the following footage is supposedly the first few minutes of the original Mouse.avi and stating that the end of the footage is so disturbing that they refuse to upload it. That opening dialogue, along with the video ending before anything spooky actually happens, added a fresh, more immersive take to a story that, at this point, you might have noticed had been getting a little more stale. With the popularity of creepypastas really peaking between 2013 to 2015, the rate at which people were making Mouse.avi animations, skyrocketed. It would take hours to cover all of them, especially because there are still people making them in the modern day. Actually, this is probably the perfect time to mention that there is still a pretty devoted fanbase to Mouse.avi that I didn't realize was, a thing before starting this video. I think a lot of it has to do with whatever's going on with this Friday Night Funkin' mod that's based off of it, but I 100% do not go there, and considering that it was released over 10 years after the original story, it's not very essential to the early history of Mouse.avi and therefore not super essential to this video. Though I guess I wouldn't be opposed to delving into that if I did another Mouse.avi video, but that's definitely not on my current itinerary at least. Mouse.avi has maintained relevance in quite a few different ways over the years. It specifically hit a big resurgence in 2021 when the aforementioned Friday Night Funkin' mod came out, but that year it was also officially referenced in a Mickey Mouse cartoon. It's literally like a half-a-second joke that would fly over the heads of anyone who isn't actively looking for it, but it's still crazy that they technically reference a story where a man is driven to suicide over Mickey Mouse in Mickey Mouse. I know I've mentioned Squidward's suicide a couple times throughout this video as an example of a more popular lost episode creepypasta, but the real reason I like to bring these two up together is because the creator of Squidward's suicide has actually directly credited Mouse.avi as one of his biggest inspirations. Lost episode creepypastas had gotten so popular and in turn so oversaturated that in 2015 the official creepypasta websites had to change their rules, banning people from making fake lost media stories about previously existing properties. And this honestly made a lot of sense when you really think of how many of these stories were being made with just an EXE slapped on it for good measure. All that to say, I do understand the criticism that Mouse.avi has gotten over the years, but implore you to look at it as more of a trailblazer than a follower. As I touched on earlier, a lot of the tropes used in the Mouse.avi story weren't considered overused when the story released in 2009. Yet, obviously, if you look at it from today's standards, it almost sounds like a parody of the genre that it had helped create. Whether you think that excuses the quality is entirely up to you, but as someone who raised themselves on creepypasta, I can't help but have a massive respect for the place that Mouse.avi has always occupied in the community. It helped popularize an extremely interesting form of horror storytelling that you literally cannot avoid on today's internet. It might not have been particularly good, but it was definitely important. Creepypastas helped fundamentally develop a new kind of internet horror culture that continues to inspire millions today. Does that make me cringe for defending the cursed Mickey Mouse story? I mean, probably, but I don't really care if so. One thing I do want to address real quick is a rumor I saw out in the wild that said that the creepypasta was based off of this very real Mickey comic from the 1930s where Mickey cheats on Mickey and Mickey goes out on an unsuccessful spree trying to kill himself. I couldn't find any mention of this comic being related to the Mouse.avi story from before 2021, so I assume this theory is either related to or sparked from the Friday Night Funkin' mod, and if so, it probably doesn't have anything to do with the original creepypasta. Lastly, I want to shout out JojaQuab666 for his massive influence on the popularity of Mouse.avi. To this day, pretty much every fan animation of it still uses the same original piano track, scream effects, and basic vibe that Joja had in his all the way back in 2009. Who's to say the Mouse.avi story would have even gotten any attention if his adaptation didn't end up blowing up on YouTube? I mean, without it, we might not have gotten things like Sonic.exe, NES Godzilla, Dead Bart, lots of things that despite how you remember them, were inarguably super popular in the creepypasta space. Recently, JojaQuab666 actually returned to his YouTube channel, debuting a new horror series called Spindle. It only has one part released as of right now, but I'm personally super excited to see what JojaQuab has to offer in the future, so make sure to check that out if that sounds like something you would be interested in. Anyways, that's all for this video. I had a lot of fun researching this, especially because the preservation of a lot of old creepypastas is either straight up lost or just very incorrect. So I really hope you liked it, and if you did, maybe consider leaving a like, a comment, a subscribe if you're freaky. I have a fuck ton of other video ideas I'm kind of just picking away at right now, but if there's any suggestions of like other older internet type shit you want to hear me talk about, I'm super open-minded, and that's kind of the whole thing on my channel. So yeah, I hope you liked it. Thank you for watching this. I had fun making it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.